Dave Palumbo here with another RX Muscle rant. Today's topic is very time sensitive, I guess you could say. The Olympia just got done 2 weeks ago. Phil Heath was defeated. Many of the reasons that he was given for being defeated was his distension of his abdomen. So I guess today I'm going to talk about how to get your gut down. If you got a big bubble gut, how do you get that down in size? How do you fix that? Because a lot of people think it's not fixable, but it is. I'm telling you it is. There's a lot of issues that lead to why a person has a distended waist. You know, people blame insulin and GH and overeating. And yeah, all these things probably do contribute to that. The question is why? What's happening in there, okay, that's causing this? Now, the way I see it and the way I've broken it down and learned over the last couple of years of just studying the situation is there's really a three-pronged issue here. Number one is that guys with very short torsos, that means from your rib box down to your waist. If you have a short torso, that means your abs don't have much room to really kind of extend over. Those people get more of that distension because there's no place for everything to go. Your internal organs, your muscle. So when you get a lot of that stuff going on or increase in size and that stuff, it balloons out. Okay, if you have a longer torso, guys like, Gunther came to mind, Jay Cutler, Juan Morel. These guys don't get distended abdomens because they have a lot of space to spread everything out over. Okay? Now, that's important to understand. So structurally, some people just don't get the distended waist, whereas some people do. Let's assume you're one of these intermediate guys or short torso guys that do get it. What's causing it? Okay? Well, the second thing is, okay, not from a structural point, from a drug-taking standpoint, is that you can be taking drugs that build, or I should say accumulate, people use the term visceral fat. That's really not correct. Visceral fat means the fat that surrounds like the heart and the kidneys, okay? This is not visceral fat we're talking about. We're talking about omental fat. And what does that mean? Well, if you strip away your abdominal muscles, okay, you have your rectus abdominis in the middle here, you pull those apart, you have your transverse abdominis muscles under there. Those are the ones that are responsible for holding your internal organs in. And then under that, okay, you have your organs. But before you get to the organs, the intestines and the large intestine, small intestine, you have something called the greater omentum. It's like almost like if you think of it as like a rug or a carpet or a drapery that covers and protects your organs, okay? And this thing, it's made up of somewhat fatty tissue. Now, you could accumulate fat on this omental like curtain that hangs down as easily as you can accumulate fat under your skin, which is known as subcutaneous fat. Now, the subcutaneous fat is what, as bodybuilders, we get rid of, right? We burn fat. We think of that's the fat that's under your skin. But there's also this omental fat. Now, no one knows why you get omental fat. You could be the leanest guy in the world, and you could have a lot of omental fat, and we don't know what causes that. Is it high GH, high insulin in the body? Is it insulin resistance? Is it just from overeating? We don't know what really causes it. Everyone thinks they know, but no one really knows for sure. But it seems like the drugs, growth hormone, and insulin, maybe even IGF, can play some role in the building of this omental fat. And when you get this curtain that lays over your intestinal tract that accumulates fat in it, okay, it starts to grow and it pushes out your internal organs. Well, it actually pushes in your internal organs, it pushes out your abdominal muscles. So the subcutaneous layer of the abdominals has no fat. You have ripped, shredded abs, but yet it's ballooning out, and people think, well, that's your organs growing. Well, not really. Yeah, can GH cause the swelling of the organs a little bit? They are made of muscle. They can enlarge a little bit. But that's not really it. Because I myself have gotten scanned, CAT scans. I know guys that have gotten ultrasounds. And their organs, while they're a little bigger, they're not big enough to justify or to explain away why people are getting these huge distended abdomens. So what the theory is now is that this omental fat is growing, and it has nothing to do with subcutaneous fat that we see in bodybuilding, like to get rid of what we call body fat. It's some kind of adaptive response. So that's an issue. So that we have the torso size issue. We have the omental fat issue, and then of course we do have the organ swelling issue, okay, which is another reason that there could be a problem. Now, why do organs swell? If you're eating 8 times a day, 9, 10 times a day, and putting tremendous amounts of food into your stomach and which then gets into your intestinal tract and colon, it puts a stretch on these organs, okay? They stretch out, their muscles, they grow, they get bigger, and that also swells that abdominal area and makes it a little harder. Now, luckily, like any muscle, if you stop eating as much food, it will detrain that muscle and it will decrease in size. Now, the interesting thing about the intestinal musculature is that it's involuntary. It's not like we go to the gym and we train it. Don't say like, oh, if I squat, I'm going to work my colon and it's going to get too big. No, you can't actively work those muscles. It's just all food related. That's why guys that don't eat a lot usually have small waistlines. Chris Cormier and I talked about this on an interview we did. And Chris was saying the same thing. Chris was like, I was always afraid to eat, he said, because I just was convinced that that's what was making these guys' waist bigger. And he was right. The problem is if you don't eat, you don't grow. Luckily, Chris had such crazy genetics that he didn't have to. He would grow anyway, even if he ate smaller amounts of food. So the question remains now, we got these three issues that are going on here causing this distension issue. And of course, when you have prolonged, distension over long periods of time, eventually the fascia that holds the abdominal organ then can stretch out. And that also makes it a lot easier for your belly to balloon out. Now, if you have conscious control over what you're doing, you can pull it in, okay, and hold it in on stage. That's assuming you don't have that growth of that omental fat. So the stretched out aspect of the abdominal musculature can be controlled on stage if you have good body awareness and you practice your posing. Kai Green has a big abdomen, that's probably stretched out from all the food he's eaten over the years. He always controls it well on stage if he's conscious about it. He's got good body awareness. And so that's one thing, that a guy like Phil Heath can work on. He might maybe more body awareness, but I think there's things that are out of his control, because I noticed that when Phil was on stage, he was having trouble, even though he was trying, holding that in, which tells me there was resistance against him holding that abdomen in. So is it a hernia? No, it's not a hernia. Does he have a hernia? He might, and he might need that fixed again. I don't know. That's what he claims he needs. It's not going to fix the abdominal distension going on. Just like in other people, it won't fix that. I have at least a 5 or 6 tiered approach to take care of this issue, and here it is. First of all, okay, because you've built all this omental fat there, we got to get rid of it. Okay, you got to stop taking GH and insulin for at least 6 months. I think that would be the first thing you'd want to do. And everyone's probably rolling, I'm going to do this. You got to do it because you got to take away the stimulus for this. In order to get it to reverse itself, you have to take the stimulus away from it. Steroids don't build that omental fat, so you don't have to worry about that. You can take all the steroids you want. Just take no GH, no insulin, and no IGF. Okay, those growth factors seem to affect that omental fat. We don't know why, but they do. Also, you got to stop eating as much food. Now, what I recommend doing, especially if you guys have fast metabolisms, is do periods where you only eat and periods where you don't eat. So if you, I believe 12-hour fasts every day are probably prudent. Now, some of these intermittent fasting lunatics will tell you 18 hours a day. That's too much. A bodybuilder won't be able to maintain their muscle on if you're not eating for 18 hours a day. But you could do 12 hours of eating, 12 hours no eating. I think that gives your body enough time to empty itself. Now, another thing is you want to take that stretch off those organs. So if you're eating food, you got to get that food moving through your intestinal tract faster. So you got to be on a fiber supplement, a high potency one. That will keep your stomach flatter on a regular basis as you're moving waste through the system quicker. It's not sitting there stretching out everything. Okay, we got to get the stretch off that colon and the stretch off the intestines so that it can shrink. Remember, muscles will atrophy in size. So if we're not eating as frequently during the day and as much, and we're gonna get things moving through the intestinal tract quicker, so it's not there, less stretch. You also might want to cut back your volume of food. I tell people cut back your protein a little bit, okay, maybe 25%. You might even want to cut back your carbohydrate intake 25% and make up for it in fat. Fat has a lot of calories and it takes up very little room, and that's the key. If you did 6 tablespoons of macadamia nut oil a day, think about that. At 15 grams of fat per tablespoon, think about what that is. Just 6 times 15, right? What is that? 30, 90. That's 90 grams of fat right there. That's not, right? Okay, no, is that right? Yeah, 90, 30. That's 90 grams of fat times, almost 10 calories per tablespoon there. So that's 900 calories. That's 1,000 calories right there you can add to your diet just by adding in a lot of macadamia nut oil, and it takes up almost no space. So you guys have to figure out how to eat less volume but get just as much caloric density out of it, so that you can reduce the stretch on your gut. Okay, that's also important. Let me look at my notes here. Okay, oh yeah, I wanted to mention one other thing. There's something that I've talked about, and there's a video out there on our YouTube channel called intestinal breathing exercises. You can search for it. And I showed you how you can actually suck your stomach in, push it out. Suck your stomach in, push it out. When you do that, you're using your transverse abdominal muscles. Okay, those don't get trained on a regular basis. If you do 300 of these suck in, push out, and it should take about 15 minutes to do it. You do 300 a day in a row, you're going to build tremendous control of your abdominal musculature. You're training your transverse abdominis muscles to be able to pull those abdominal muscles in. And by doing 300 reps, what's happening is, after a while, you don't think about it anymore. It becomes second nature. And what you'll notice is that when you're on stage and you're hitting a double by and someone says, pull in the stomach, it'll just pull in on its own because you have that, you've trained those muscles to do that, to get used to pulling themselves in. It's hard to explain to someone, but once you've done it for about 1 to 2 to 3 months of doing these exercises every single day, I do them, you can do them standing watching TV, you can do them while you're driving. You'll all of a sudden get tremendous control over that abdominal musculature. You'll be able to do a vacuum pose that you never did before. And that's, it's a passive thing. You don't have to think about it. And that's what you want. So that's going to also, once again, it's going to give you better abdominal control on stage of your midsection. The other aspects that I told you, which would be the fasting 12 hours a day, reducing reducing food load, taking a fiber supplement, okay? All these things are going to help this situation. The final straw that you really want to put in there is repopulating the colon with the good bacteria, or probiotic bacteria as we call it. Because a lot of people have their intestinal tract is just destroyed. It's just not healthy. It's always inflamed, and that's also causing the abdomen to swell. I recommend using food products for probiotics rather than pills or powders that they sell, because you're getting way, way, way more. You need a ton of these probiotics in your colon and to repopulate it. Use foods like Bubby sauerkraut. They sell it in most supermarkets now. You could eat. It comes in like the sauerkraut in a jar, and it's in like a brine water. The water actually contains more of the probiotics than the actual sauerkraut. So drink the water. You know, it's salty, but I love the taste of it. And eat the sauerkraut, a couple servings a day, and that's going to help repopulate the colonic bacteria. Now you can use stuff like kefir, but kefir has it's milk based, so I don't like using dairy because that inflames the intestinal tract too. Now they do make a coconut kefir you can use, but it's hard to find ones that have a lot of them have tons of sugar in them. It's hard to find sugar-free. Bubby sauerkraut is the best one to use. So if you take all of what I just said in a nutshell, probiotics, intestinal breathing exercises, fiber supplement, only eating 12 hours out of the day, trying to reduce the volume of the food you eat and eat more calorie-dense food so it takes up less space in that intestinal tract, no IGF, no insulin, no GH for 6 months. I guarantee you within half a year, you will see a huge reduction in your waist size, in the ballooning aspect of it, that bubble gut phenomenon that we see on stage, and I think you're going to be a lot healthier as well in the process. That's also another important thing. It's the health of the individual that comes into play here. I remember when I took this yoga class once, I got involved, and they do this energy assessment on you, and they were pushing on my abdomen, and it was like rock hard, and it was like distended. It's when I was still competing, before I figured out a lot of my issues that I had going on. And they're like, your abdomen's supposed to be soft. Think of a baby's abdomen when you push on it. And they're not talking about the musculature. They're talking about when your muscles are relaxed and they push on you. You should be able to push down all the way and feel your organs. And I couldn't do that. It was like a bowling ball. I couldn't figure out. It was like hard there. And I started doing these intestinal breathing exercises they taught me there, and incorporating some of these other things, fiber and everything like that, little by little. And I reversed it. And my abdomen is soft now. It's flat. I can vacuum. And yeah, I lost weight too, that helps, but it was the whole combination of everything together that worked. So it is possible to reduce the size of your waist and to improve the aesthetics of your body and the health. Look, this wasn't an easy rant. It was a lot of information here. You might want to go back and listen to it a couple of times, but a lot of you guys will get tremendous help from what I'm telling you here. And you know what? Even if you don't have the issue, this could prevent you from getting it. Think about it twice. I'm Dave Palumbo. with another RX Muscle rant.